Nice to see you back, guys. Welcome to W3 Runs. Once again, I am back with a new project related JavaScript animation. And today in this project, we are going to build this beautiful parallax effect. As you can see, when I scroll down my page, it moved the mountains and the leaves from the sea. So let's see how we can create this beautiful parallax animation effect with the help of JavaScript, CSS and HTML. And before I jump into the Visual Studio Code Editor, I want to tell you something. This project is part of my JavaScript animation, projects without libraries. Here I cover multiple JavaScript animation projects one after another. You can access this course using my Udemy course link. Also, you can access this course using Skillshare link. And if you want to access this source course, yes, you can find it here. So let's get started. So finally, I am in my Visual Studio Code Editor. As you can see, I already create index.html file, style.css file and script.js file. And also you can see in my current working directory, we have a folder called images. And inside this folder, we have all the images such as hill image, hill 2, hill 4, hill 5, leaf and plant. Also the coconut tree, this one. These are all PNG images and I'm going to use all these images to create this parallax effect. So let's back to the index.html file. So at first inside the body tag, I'm going to take another tag called header tag. Then inside this header tag, first I'm going to take a heading to tag h2 and here I'm going to type logo. Also, I'm going to assign a class to this h2 tag, some type class, and also our class name is logo. Then inside this header tag, here I'm going to take a nav tag, navigation tag, nav, and I'm going to add a class to this nav tag, class, and I'm going to type navigation. Then inside this nav tag, here I'm going to take anchor tag a. Then I'm going to add our first anchor element, our neighbor element home. Then I duplicate this section and I'm going to name it about. Also I'm going to duplicate this section and this time I'm going to name it services. And at last I'm going to add contact. And I'm going to save this file. And after save this file, if I back to my browser, let me show you. This is how it looks like. Now we have the logo and the navigation bar. Now let's jump into the CSS file and style the body section. So I am in my CSS file. At first, inside my style.css file, I'm going to import a font. I'm going to import Google font, which is Poppins. I'm going to use this one. After that, here I'm going to select the universal selector, start, then inside the curly braces, here I'm going to add some style. First, I'm going to add margin, and I'm going to set margin set by default, I'm going to set margin 0. Then I'm going to use padding. Padding by default, I'm going to set padding 0. After that, I'm going to use box sizing. Box sizing, border box. Then I'm going to use font family property, font family, and here I'm going to use Poppins, 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 this one. And after comma, here and I'm going to pass the family, so which is sans serif, this one. And I'm going to set this file. After set this file, if I back to my browser, now you can see it removed the default padding margin from it. Also it changed the font, default font to Poppins font. Now let's back to the Visual Studio Code. Then after that, inside the style.css file, I'm going to select the body tag, body. Then inside the curly braces, first property I'm going to use background, and I'm going to set this color, hashtag F9. It's a kind of light gray color. Then I'm going to set minimum height, min height Minimum height I'm going to set 100 viewport height. Then I'm going to target the header tag, this one, this header section. So I'm copy the tag name header, and here I'm going to type header, then inside the curly braces, and first I'm going to define the position, and I want to make it absolute. After that, from the top I want to place it 0, and from the left also I'm going to place it 0 position. Then I'm going to define width. I'm going to define width 100%. I'm going to use 100% width of this screen size. Then I'm going to define padding. Padding from top and bottom I'm going to use 30 pixel, and for left and right I'm going to use 100 pixel. Next I'm going to use display property, display flex, and justify content, I'm going to use flex start, and align items center. Also I'm going to set the z index, and here I'm going to say z index 100, and I'm going to set this file. Here we use flex start because I want the logo and the navigation bar left side of our screen. That's why we use flex start. And to make sure the header will be visible no matter what element we add, so I set z index 100. Now after set this file, if I back to my browser, let me show you, this is how it's look like. Now you can notice we have padding from top side 30 pixel and from the bottom 30 pixel, and from the left here we have padding 100 pixel, also from the right 100 pixel. Next I'm going to style this logo, so I'm going to target this logo, and now I'm going to target the logo. So I'm going to type .logo, then inside the curly braces, here first I'm going to define the font size, and I'm going to make it 2em. After that I'm going to define color, and here I'm going to use this red variant color code, this one, and I'm going to set this file. Also we need to define some margin at the right, some type margin right. Here I'm going to pass 270 pixel because I need gap between the logo and the navbar elements. So after set this file, if I back to my browser, this is how it's look like. Now let's target the navigation menu. So let's back to the code, and first I'm going to use its class name navigation, so I copy the class name and back to style.css file. So I'm going to type dot navigation, and inside this navigation I want to target all the anchor tags. So inside the curly braces, and inside the curly braces, the first property I'm going to use text decoration, and I'm going to make it none. I don't want any text decoration. I want to remove the underline. Fine. Then we need to define the color. Here I'm going to use the same color, this one, which we use for the logo, kind of dark red. Then I'm going to define padding. From top and bottom I'm going to use 6 pixel padding, and from left and right I'm going to use 15 pixel padding. After that I'm going to define border radius. I'm going to make 20 pixel. Also I'm going to add little margin. So I'm going to type margin. From top and bottom I'm going to assign margin 0, and from left and right I'm going to assign margin 10 pixel. After that I'm going to add little font weight. Here I'm going to assign font weight 600. I want little border font. And at last I'm going to add little transition on it. And here I'm going to add transition duration 0.5 second. And I'm going to set this file. After set this file, if I back to my browser, let me show you. This is how it's look like. Now I want to add hover effect when I hover my cursor on this anchor elements. I want to change the font color and the background color when I hover on it. So let's back to the code, and this time I'm going to create a hover selector using anchor tag a hover. Then inside the curly braces, here first I'm going to change the background. I'm going to make background this color, and our font. So for the font I'm going to type color, and I'm going to make it white, and I'm going to set this file. After set this file, if I back to my browser and hover my cursor on this navbar elements, you can see the result. This is how it looks like when I hover my cursor on it. It said background color red and font color white. Now let's work on the images that we'll use to create the parallax effect. So let's jump into the Visual Studio Code, and as you can see in my current working directory, we have the folder named images. First, I'm going to jump into the index.html file. Then after header section, I'm going to create a section. I'm going to use a section tag, section, and here I'm going to assign a class, and our class name is Parallax. Then inside this section tag, first I'm going to take an image, img, and here I'm going to pass the image source. So inside the double quotes, I'm going to type the folder name images, and from this images folder, first I'm going to add this image, hill1.png. Then I'm going to assign an ID, it's a hill1, and I'm going to duplicate this section. One by one I add all the hill images, and at the same way I add tree, leaf and plant images, and I'm going to save this file. So we have total 8 images, 5 hill image, 1 tree image, 1 leaf image, and last one is plant image. So after save this file, if I back to my browser, and you can see this is our first hill image, this is our second hill image, this is third one, this is fourth one, this is fifth one, this is the tree, this is the leaf, and this one is for plants. So we need to put all the images together. But before, also I'm going to add another tag, which is h2 for the text. So here I'm going to type h2, and inside this h2 tag I'm going to type parallax effect. Then I'm going to assign an ID to this h2 tag, ID, I'm going to make it text, and I'm going to save this file. Now let's jump into the style.css file and target the parallax div. So here I'm going to target the parallax div dot parallax, and inside the curly braces, the first property I'm going to use position. Position I'm going to make it relative. Then I'm going to use display property. Display I'm going to use flex. After that I'm going to type justify content center, and align items also center. Then I'm going to assign height, and here I'm going to use height 100 VH. After save this file, if I back to my browser, you can see it put all the images next to each other. Now let's back to the Visual Studio Code again. Next I'm going to hide the overflow area. Overflow, it's a hidden. After that, to order to give the exact shape we want, we need to select the images which is inside the parallax div. So here I'm going to type dot parallax image img, then inside the curly braces, here I'm going to pass position. First I'm going to type absolute. Then I'm going to add top value, and I'm going to pass 0. Next I'm going to use left value, left, also I'm going to pass 0. After that I'm going to define width, and here I'm going to set 100% width. Then I'm going to define the pointer event. Pointer events, here I'm going to use none value, none, and I'm going to save this file. After set this file, if I back to my browser, this is how our images looks like. Together they form this beautiful background. And reason this is happening because this image, all of the image are designed for only for this purpose. Their resolution is same. So this is one view split into multiple images. So this is it for this tutorial. At the next part of this tutorial, we are going to complete this animation. So thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for our next part. Hello guys, nice to see you back. This is the second part of this tutorial. As you can see in our previous part, we arrange all the images at right place and create this beautiful view. So this is one view that's split in a multiple images. Now let's work on the h2 tag. So we need to jump into the Visual Studio Code editor, and if I show you my index.html file, here you can see the h2 tag, h2 id text. So I'm going to use its id name text, and let's jump into the style.css file. So here at first I'm going to target the text using its id name. So inside the curly braces, here first I'm going to define the position. So I'm going to type position, I'm going to make it absolute. Position absolute. After that, I'm going to define the font size. Font size, and here I'm going to set font size 5 EM. Then I'm going to define the color, the text color. And I'm going to use the white color. Hashtag FFF. After that, I'm going to use little text shadow. But before I use this text shadow, let's back to the browser. So after set this file, if I back to my browser, this is how it's look like. Parallax effect. Now let's add little text shadow to give it little depth. So let's back to the Visual Studio Code, and here I'm type text shadow. Text shadow, and I'm going to use this shadow, and I'm going to set this file. And after set this file, if I back to my browser, this is how it's look like. Now it provides little depth in this text. Now let's add the content section. So let's jump into the Visual Studio Code and jump into the index.html file. Then after this section, here I'm going to add a new section. Then inside this section, but before I'm going to add a class, and I'm going to name it content. Then inside this section tag, first I'm going to take a h2 tag, h2. Then inside this h2 tag, here I'm going to type Parallax scrolling website. Then I'm going to take a paragraph tag, p. And inside this paragraph tag, I'm going to take some dummy text for scrolling. I need content to scroll. So type lorem, I'm going to add nearly 750 word. And I'm going to set this file. After set this file, let's back to the browser. And this is how it's look like. Now we need to style this content section. So let's add some styling. So I'm going to jump into the Visual Studio Code editor, and I'm going to open style.css file, and I'm going to start the styling. At first, I'm going to select the content section using its class name dot content. Then inside the curly braces, first I'm going to define the position, and position I'm going to make it relative. After that, I'm going to define background color. Background, and for this background, I'm going to use the same red color, this one. So I'll copy the color code, and I'm going to put it here. After that, I'm going to add some padding from all of the direction. Padding 100 pixel from all of the directions. Then after set this file, if I back to my browser, this is how it's look like. And I think this red color is very vibrating, so I'm going to try to match with this color. So let's change the color code, and this time I'm going to use this color. Something match with this background, and back to my browser again. Now it is quite match with this background color. And then we need to change the text. We need to arrange the text. At first I'm going to target this heading tag. So here I'm going to type dot content h2 heading to tag. After that, inside the curly braces, first I'm going to define the font size. Font size, I'm going to use 3 EM font size. Then I'm going to define color. and here I'm going to type color white, hashtag FFF. Then I'm going to define margin at bottom. Margin bottom, I'm going to pass 10 pixel. And I'm going to set this file. After set this file, if I back to my browser, this is how it's look like. After that, we need to style this content section. For that, again I'm going to jump into the CSS file, and this time I'm going to target the content. Dot content, and I want to target the paragraph. Then inside the curly braces, first I'm going to define the font size. Font size, I'm going to use font size 1 EM. After that, I'm going to define the color of the text. Color, here I'm going to set it white, hashtag FFF. At last I want to use little lighter font, so I'm type font weight 300, and I'm going to set this file. After set this file, if I back to my browser, now this is how it's look like. Now it's look better, and we have enough content to scroll. So we successfully complete our styling part, and now we need to work on the parallax effect. For that, we need to jump into the JavaScript file. So let's jump into the JavaScript file, script.js. At first, we need to target those elements. I want to say those images I want to move when I scroll down my page. For that, I'm going to declare a variable let, and our first variable name is text, txt. First, I want to target the text using its ID name. Text equal to document dot get element by ID, and here I'm going to pass the ID name. And then inside this round braces, I'm going to pass the ID name text and semicolon to end this line. Then at the same way, I'm going to target hill 4, hill 5 and hill 1. Also, I'm going to target the leaf. So I'm going to copy its ID name leaf and back to the script.js file, and I'm going to duplicate this line, and this time I'm going to target leaf, and I store it in this variable leaf variable, and I pass the ID name leaf. Then I'm going to target hill 1, hill 4 and hill 5. So from here I'm going to target hill 1. So copy its ID name and back to the script.js file, and I duplicate this line total 2 times. This time I'm going to target hill 1. Then I'm going to target hill 4. Hill 4, and also I'm going to change the ID name hill 4, and at last I'm going to target hill 5. Hill 5. It's not leaf 5, it's a hill 5. So I copy hill, not leaf, and replace leaf with hill. So I successfully target those elements which I want to move when I scroll down my page, such as this text, the first hill, and the fourth hill and the fifth hill. Also this leaf. And I don't want to select this coconut tree and these plants. I don't want to select them. I want to move only the background hill. I want to see the first hill, the fourth hill and the fifth hill. Also the leaf and the text. That's why I select all of them and store it in a variable, in different variables. These are the elements that I want to animate. Now let's work on the effect. So I have to type window dot add event listener. Then inside the round braces, first I want to scroll. If I scroll, then I want to run a callback function. So here I'm going to use arrow function. Then inside the curly braces, basically it's mean whatever code we write inside this callback function, when I scroll it, it's going to run this code. Inside this function, I will create a new variable, let, and our variable name is val. Let value equal to, here to type, and I want to extract the value of scroll y. So I'm to type window, and here we need to extract the value of scroll y. So I'm to type window dot scroll y and semicolon to end this line. Because we need only y-axis scrolling, not x-axis scrolling, to execute the parallax effect. Basically, it's going to access the vertical distance. Now let's work on the elements which I want to change. Now after get the value, at first I want to change the text position when I scroll down my page. I want to add little margin. I want to add margin at top of this text. So it's going to move downward. For that, we are going to use style method. Let me show you how. So here we type, first I'm going to type the variable name. Which variable will store this text? Which is text. Text dot style dot, I want to add margin top value. Margin top. Then equal to margin top. Then I'm going to assign a value equal to, here I'm going to pass, basically I'm going to use template literals. So I'm going to use backticks, then inside the backticks I'm going to use $sign, then inside the curly braces, first I'm going to provide the value we get from the scroll. Some type value, and I'm going to multiply, and I want to multiply with 2.5. So every time when I scroll down my page, it's going to change the value and it's going to multiply with 2.5 pixel. Then we need to provide the unit px. That's it. So yeah, after set this file, if I back to my browser and try to scroll down this page, here you can see the result. So whenever I scroll down this page, as you can see, this text add a new margin at top. At the same way, we are going to move other elements at left side and right side. Let me show you how. So let's back to the Visual Studio Code, and this time I'm going to duplicate this line and I'm going to target the leaf dot style, and this time I want to move this leaf from the top. So here I'm going to type style dot top. After that, here I want to multiply with minus 1.5 pixel. Here I want to provide negative value. So when I scroll down my page, it's going to provide the negative value, dynamic negative value to this top property. At the same way, I'm going to duplicate this line, and this time I want to move this leaf element at left side, left. And here I'm going to pass value, I am going to pass the positive value, and I'm going to save this file. After save this file, let's back to the browser. But before, I'm going to add some semicolons. It's necessary. Otherwise, it can throw error. So after back to the browser, if I scroll down my page, here you can see, you can notice the leaf. So whenever I scroll down my page, it's provide little move away effect. As you can notice, it move away from the seam. Because of here we use minus top value and positive left value. That's why it move upside and left side. At the same way, we need to handle the hill 5, hill 4 and hill 1. Let me show you how. So I'm going to duplicate this line, and this time I'm going to target hill 5. And I want to move this hill 5 element left side, and I want to provide the same value. It's going to move it left side. Then I duplicate this line, and this time I'm going to target hill 4. And I want to move this hill 4 at opposite direction. So here I'm going to use negative value, negative left value. And at last we have another element which is hill 5, and I want to move this element top side. It is the background hill. That's why I want to move it top. So I'm going to pass top property, top, and here I'm going to change the value. I'm going to use only 1 pixel. So every time, according to the dynamic value, it multiply with 1. Oops, our background hill is not hill 5, it's a hill 1, not 5. It is the main background hill. So after save this file, if I back to the browser again and scroll this page, now you can notice this beautiful parallax effect. I hope now it's clear for you how we can create it. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for our next project.